This is the Orlando Sentinel Editorial Board meeting for the U.S. District 11 seat for U.S. Congress. There are two candidates. The incumbent is Daniel Webster. He declined our invitation to participate. He's a Republican. His Democratic challenger is Dana Marie Cottrell. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes, Cottrell. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you participating. I was wondering if you could just take a minute and say who you are and say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll have a few questions for you.
Thank you very much for having me today, and thank you for everybody for listening to this and getting to know your candidates. My name is Dana Cottrell. I'm running for U.S. House Congressional District 11, which is Sumter County, Hernando County, Citrus County, the southern portion of Marion County, and the northwest portion of Lake County. We are just under 600,000 registered voters, and I am a teacher by trade. I'm a graduate of University of South Florida with my undergrad and my master's degree in library and information science. I have lived in Hernando County since 1988. I decided to run in 2018 and running again in 2020. And the reason that I decided to run is because I feel that Daniel Webster has become disconnected from the middle class and the struggles that we face every day, and to the economic impact of trying to get educated, whether it be by trade school or by college education, to advance our condition in the United States. And one of the greatest problems I feel is a wage gap in our country today. So I want to make a change. I want to make a difference. And that's why I've decided to run.
Okay, thank you. Are you a teacher now?
I'm not teaching right now. I stopped in June of 2020 because I'm giving this full time toward the election. When I ran in 2018, I was not working at the time. I was working with my son. You don't want to go into that. We don't have enough time, but if you have a longer time. But I stopped teaching in June to run full time for this office. It is a full-time job running for office, and it needs my full attention.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you this. This district is remarkably Republican in terms of its voter registration statistics. 282,000, according to the thing I saw. Only 167,000 Democrats. Your party is outnumbered by 120,000. So I'm wondering, it seems like this is a kind of race where your message would need to speak to Republican voters. So how does it do that?
Well, one of the things that's interesting when people talk to me is they wonder how come I'm registered for any party because I'm so balanced. When I look at any issue, there has to be a balance of opinion, and you need to incorporate everybody's ideas and experiences into that decision-making policy. So let's take healthcare as one example. I am not pushing for a Medicare for all option to go that way. I believe that Medicare should be open as a public option, as a choice for your insurance plan. And when you look at the numbers and the statistics and paying into the plan, it becomes a lot less for a person to have Medicare as their insurance than it would be to have their private insurance companies. And a lot of that is the overhead costs and the payroll costs when you look at private insurance versus the Medicare option. So I think that changes can be made in that way. And I want to see that for seniors, that Medicare covers everything without going to a secondary or a Plan B type insurance. I want to see changes made overall to Medicare, dropping out Medicaid completely and just rolling it into one system, and then having the pay into Medicare based on your income. So whatever your income level is would be your buy-in option into Medicare for those who are not already eligible for it as a senior. I believe Americans need to have choice. And so forcing somebody onto your opinion, I think, is not always the best option. And when I talk to Republicans, they have an idea, somebody else has an idea. You should never be forcing your idea onto anybody. And so I want to have that in our nation, where we look at everybody's opinions and ideas and come up with best solutions, but also leaving choice open for other people. So Medicare should be a public option. I've already looked at the numbers for me personally. My husband is working for the federal government. The federal government puts in just over $1,100 a month. It's $512 a paycheck that the federal government puts in for their contribution to our health care. And then my husband and I, we pay $175 a paycheck. So that's twice a month toward our health care. Our dental and our medical is running almost $1,600 a month for our dental and medical. And that is with our employee contribution. If we went to a Medicare for All option, that would not only lessen our employee contribution, it would lessen our contribution, and we could have better providers and better healthcare. So I think what will eventually happen is people see this is an option for me, but we don't force it and we don't get rid of the private system. And when I speak to a lot of Republicans, they will see, and when we talk about gun control as an issue, where nobody's trying to get rid of your guns. That is not what we're trying to do, but we need to have safe gun regulations. And how can we make sure that we go and follow through with that? There can be thumbprints on guns. So just like you have a fingerprint for your iPhone, that way children cannot access a gun and cannot release a trigger, and we reduce accidents that way. We can have registrations, we can cut gun show loopholes. There are certain things like silencers. They're not needed in the general public. So we can look at what is in the best interest of all while still safeguarding the liberties and freedoms for Americans. I think what our body politic has done is it has behooved them to put us at odds with each other, to be fighting amongst each other. Because as long as we're fighting amongst each other about issues, we're not seeing what's happening in big business, in industry, in taking over our government and not working for the betterment of the American people. So I want to stop, and this is on my webpage, it's on the mission statement. I want to stop the fighting. And I want us to come together and talk through issues and come to common solutions and solve problems without infringing on the rights of Americans while still benefiting all Americans moving forward.
Well, how are you getting this message out? I should have, but did not go look at the financial reports yet. But have you raised much money, and how are you telling people, would-be voters, about these messages?
Well, when we were able to get out and about, especially going to Chamber of Commerce events, it was wonderful because we would meet a lot of Republicans at chamber events. Unfortunately, a lot of those events have been sidelined now with COVID, and with the social distancing, it's very difficult to social distance at any of these events. So that was a good way to meet Republicans. And when I would talk with Republicans, one of the interesting things is when they have a party or a civic group that is partisan, they are not allowed to have a guest speaker who is of the opposite party. So I've talked to a lot of Republicans who have said, oh, I wish you could come speak to us, and they've even told me, I really want to vote for you, but I'm a Republican, I'm still going to vote Republican anyway. So it's very interesting to get into the mindset of people to hear where they come from. I've always been of the mindset I vote for a person, not for a party, but that's just my idea. So we try to reach out through social media. We try to reach out with text messaging. You ran the numbers and you gave us numbers of our district, but we're really looking to contact MPAs and independents, because when you look at the MPA and independent vote in our district, it runs 23% of the vote. So if we win the Democratic vote and we win the independent MPA vote, we will win this election. So we have sent out mass mailers to them. We are targeting through text messaging. We have a very active social media campaign going. We're running Sunday night chats, which are via Zoom, and town hall meetings via Zoom, which anybody is invited to come. We send out the agenda and the meeting invite, and anybody is welcome. But what you will find is that the majority of people do not become involved with politics. They do not get actively involved. I know we're not going door to door, but we are doing a lot of no-knock lit drops. So we have packaging together, and we're sending out our slate cards by the party with the slate of Democratic candidates who they're recommending to vote. So a lot of that is coming out. We have not raised near as much as Daniel Webster. We did not in 2018 either. If you look on my page also, I've done a whole Zoom on campaign finance, so I don't want to go all into that. But Daniel Webster is back. 88% of his money comes from big business. It comes from sugar, it comes from housing, and it comes from the insurance industry. So he's vested in voting for those three components. Only 2% of his campaign money comes in district. The rest is out of district. So,
if I could interrupt you so we can get a couple of questions in, what kind of votes would you cite of Daniel Webster's that where you would have voted differently, but also particularly votes that some of the Republicans in the district might have been in agreement with you on?
environmental votes. Daniel Webster's voting on the environment is awful. He continues to vote for oil industry. He continues to vote for carbon industry. I am totally opposed to that. The Citizens Climate Lobby, I'm very active with them and meeting with them again. And I support their initiatives for the carbon initiative and the carbon tax. Daniel Webster is opposed to all of that. I feel our environment is one of the things that we need to really be concerned about and pushing forth new innovative policies. I am for the Green New Deal. I believe the Green New Deal will bring jobs and innovative growth in renewable energies to our nation. And I also think it will be a new jobs plan for our nation. And I think we can also rebuild our infrastructure by looking at the Green New Deal. So there are so many advantages to go that way. Daniel Webster is opposed to that. Also, when we look at women's rights and we look at the LGBTQ community, Daniel Webster has continuously voted against any rights against discrimination for the LGBTQ plus community. And I totally support gender choice and having non-discriminatory policies in rent, in hiring practices. So we are opposed with those areas.
Well, I'm not judging the rightness or wrongness of any of your positions, but the things that you're bringing up, like the Green New Deal, I guess I could go find a poll to see how many Republicans think that's a good idea, and my guess is, I could be wrong, but my guess is that not many are all that happy about it. So, I guess I go back again to whether or not your policies, again, which seem heartfelt, whether or not they're speaking to the voters who you need to get elected.
Well, when we look at different initiatives, we're also looking at how they are presented by the media. So again, this goes back to that scare tactic. When you look at the Medicare choice option, a lot of times the media will present it as, oh, the Democrats, all they want is Medicare for all. Well, that is not true. And when you look at the Green New Deal initiatives, it is a jobs plan. And it is to bring grant money into communities and to businesses to come up with different renewable energy policies, like renewable building policies, adding solar panels to buildings, having initiatives and tax rebates to homeowners for energy policies, bringing forth electric cars and making electric cars more affordable, and retrofitting factories, bringing new jobs to create more electric cars, retrofitting gas stations or areas to have more electric plug-in areas for cars. So these are all parts of the Green New Deal that aren't discussed or talked about. And this is where I said, when I talk to Republicans and we have open conversation and they are listening or hearing some of the truth to these policies, they start to then say, well, that is a really good idea. I think that is a plan that I am for. I really should look more into that or read about that. And they will find that we have so much more in common, but it has been a lot of the media discourse and, quite frankly, the president's discourse in trying to highlight Democrats as villains in our society, as trying to take away American choice, to take away economic freedom in our country. And that is absolutely not true. So again, messaging and getting across to people what we're really trying to say or what the policy is very important. It's the same thing as we're learning yesterday with President Trump's statements, knowing that Corona was what it was. We all knew this, but if you were just watching Fox News or listening to the president, then you trusted him not to wear a mask. You trusted him that your children wouldn't get sick, and this wasn't true. And again, unfortunately, people are getting some of their information from inaccurate sources. So a lot of what my job is to give information in an accurate format.
May I ask you a quick question on the Green New Deal? Do you favor all aspects of that? I mean, as far as, say, fossil fuels, the elimination of fossil fuels by a certain date? Because there's been various interpretations of what that means. And people have sort of redefined it in whatever way they want. What is your position on that, say specifically the fossil fuels and the elimination of them?
So I trust the science. I also know that fossil fuels are limited in quantity. They will not last forever. And when we look at our air quality and our air emissions, just look at the pictures when we all went into quarantine from March and April, and we looked at the difference in the air quality, not putting fossil fuels just from our cars, from our automobiles into the air, and the difference in the pictures. This is something, yes, we need to move to across across the entire world. You have to also look at the ocean levels. We have to do something about our plastics in the oceans, the oxygen levels of our oceans. Have you looked at the statistics on that? If we lose the oxygen levels of our oceans and we deplete the animals in our oceans, we have no more planet. Our planet does not survive that. So I believe in the young people of our nation to move us forward in different policies, yes, to get rid of fossil fuel burning going into the future. It might take a little bit longer than some of the dates that are put forth, but I think that that is the way that our planet needs to go if we're going to sustain clean air and clean water. Clean water is a huge initiative we need to also work toward. The other thing we need to look at, and this we have to find ways to do this, is what do we do with our trash? Our trash problem across the world is just multiplied as we have more humans living, because we have to incinerate this, and we have to burn this, and we look at the trash islands that are floating around, and nobody's addressing the trash issue. Recycling, what do we do with our recycled products? Can we do more with those products? These are, I believe, are issues that government needs to tackle in order to safeguard our future. And look at the health issues that are connected to environmental problems. And that just goes hand in hand. And I have a whole thing on environmental justice also. It is important, and we have to look at balance again. I go back to that word of balance. We cannot just look at a profit margin for an industry. We also need to be responsible in the way we run industry. And I think that government has a responsibility to put in law and legislation to protect the health and the welfare of the American people.
Okay. Well, I think I mentioned that our time is going to go fast, and indeed it has. I appreciate you talking to us and participating in this, and want to wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much.